All right, what is going on, Optimistic Fan Club? Thank you so much for tuning in, and a quick, as usual, special shout out to our super Patreon producers, Eric Schoner, Andrew Novak, Jake Sedlak, Hunter Wilkes, Rebecca Funk, DJ Cafe Frog, Gavin Watucky, Neil of Neils, and Anthony Evans. Thank you guys so much. If you're one of our Patreon producers in general, we appreciate you. When we launch these for pre-sale, you're going to get a discount. So if you want to jump in on that and get bonus content, I think we're putting out 2 videos there this week. Please go and do that. Support the page. Keep it sponsorship free. Today, what I wanted to talk about is just taking a quarterback in 2026. Obviously, I've been pretty public about it. I would love for Shedeur Sanders to be the guy. I really would. It's going to be difficult, especially if you get a new regime in. You've heard Ken Carman talk about it on 92.3 The Fan and a lot of others, and it makes sense. It's like when you get a new regime in, they want their own guy. They want their own quarterback, unless it's like a Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams situation. But even early on in the year, there were a lot of people who were like, I don't know, like if this doesn't work out this season, Ben Johnson's going to want his own guy who plays on time and yada, yada, yada. Clearly, Caleb Williams is a very good player. He's developing well within the system. He has a lot of growth to still do, but Ben Johnson is not going to move off of that. There's a difference, though, in Shedeur Sanders' skill level and raw ability versus a guy like Caleb Williams, though. And when you take somebody with the number 1 overall, you're not going to move on them. If it's a 5th-round pick, it's very different. And believe me, I think that if you poured all of your resources into Shedeur Sanders, you gave him all of the tools, I think he would be absolutely a franchise quarterback. That is what I believe. You can say whatever you want in the comments. I do not care. I've seen what I've seen. I've watched his college tape. I was at the game this Sunday, missed some plays. That's undoubted, but he's a rookie quarterback. Drake May was not outstanding. He showed the flashes. I think that we've seen flashes from Shedeur, but it's not a ton of time to really sway people. We will see. Like coming up this weekend, and we're going to talk about this on Patreon, so again, go check it out. Playing the Titans this Sunday against the number 1 overall pick on 2 rosters and 2 teams who are really struggling, that's going to be a good 1-to-1 to see like, okay, what do we have here? Because Cam Ward, once again, people want to discount him and look at box score and numbers. We're talking about ability and flash. He is a fantastic player. And I talked about this a year ago. If you're a Patreon member, you know this. And I compared Cam Ward to Patrick Mahomes in terms of play style, ability, calmness in the pocket, creativity. And now you got accounts like Sleeper over there on Twitter being like, who does this look like? Pat Mahomes. It's like, guys, you got to follow me on Twitter too, because my 500 or 485 followers, like I'm putting out gold that people are just poaching or coming to a year later. So stay ahead of the curve with your boy over here. Regardless, taking a quarterback seems to be an inevitability unless we see a big flash and a big pop, because Kevin Stefanski is going to be fired, or at least he should, 1,000%. And the new regime is going to want their new guy, unless it's somebody who has some sort of ties to Shedeur or wanted him previously, right? So that seems kind of unlikely. But again, we will see as the season closes out. That's not really what this video is about. This video is about, like, if it does go that way, which of the 3 quarterbacks do you really want? And we're going to do film studies on these guys over on Patreon as the season goes on, and probably talk about one of them in our first mock draft of next week, which we're going to do after the Titans game over on Patreon. You got Ty Simpson from Alabama. You got Fernando Mendoza from Indiana, and you got Dante Moore from Oregon. I think if you're looking at all of these guys, they have different skill sets and they have different ceilings and different floors. I think you look at a guy like Fernando Mendoza, who's kind of the consensus number 1 at this point. He had the amazing drive to end the Penn State game. They've really been dominating, and we get to see him play this Saturday in the Big Ten Championship against Ohio State. So that's an amazing opportunity for evaluation. Like, that could really make his draft stock skyrocket, and could also make the price tag on trading up to get him, like some people are projecting, which I don't really like, with the Titans to get the number 1 overall pick. it could make that asking price very high if he plays really well. So there's a lot hinging on this specific weekend for the Browns' future and quarterbacks in general. What we've seen from him is a guy who can operate well from the pocket. I think you've heard a lot of guys like Todd McShay, other big analysts be like, he kind of gets stuck if his first read isn't there. But what is undoubted is that he has the command of his team. He has the knowledge, and he's been really impressive. There was a clip where he's talking to Urban Meyer about his process of going through his progressions and making the plays on that final Penn State drive. And Urban Meyer was blown away with what he heard. He's like, I love this guy. So you have that. And there's definitely something to be said in the way he carries himself. He's a little bit of a dork and a little bit of a nerd. He's a baller, though. And some people have compared him to Kirk Cousins type of guy. Kirk Cousins was a very good player. Kirk Cousins was a 3rd-round pick or 4th, whatever he was. However, he had a nice career pre-Achilles. He didn't really have the X factor to take you over the hump. So if that's the comp, I don't really know. We're going to have to see if he has the X factor. I think you'll figure out if he has an X factor based on how he plays this weekend and going forward into the playoffs. So that's what you have there. A guy who's been on a good team with a good defense and a good coach, solid weapons around him, solid run game, and he's made plays when it has counted the most so far this year. And it's clear that his team believes in him, but he's a little dorky in some ways. And I say that like in a loving way, right? Because there's a lot of quarterbacks who are dorky, right? But we got to find out if he really has the X factor. We got to figure that out. I think that his arm strength is good. It's not Josh Allen. It's not Pat Mahomes, but it's good enough. And the arm talent is there. It is not the best within this draft, though. And that's, I guess, where we'll jump to next. Dante Moore. Dante Moore out of Oregon. He's younger. He's born in East Cleveland, went to school in Michigan, and he has the opportunity to return back to the NCAA. However, I think that based on what we saw the previous year with Drew Aller falling off of a cliff, Arch Manning, Carson Beck, all these guys who were projected to be first overall picks, top 10 picks in the 25 draft, they're not draftable now. They all have to go back. Drew Aller is going to be a mid-round pick. Carson Beck might never be drafted in general with just how he is as a guy. Like, the guy's brutal. So I think any quarterback who's considering going back, who's projected to be a high pick this year, like, they're going to the NFL draft. Dante Moore is going to be available to be drafted. And I think this is another scenario where you have to balance and weigh the talent that is surrounding him and the environment that he's in and the competition that he plays relative to the talent on his own team to what he's going to become in an environment where he has to be an elevator of talent, or he's going to have to be part of a rebuild, which offensively the Browns are going to be in a rebuild next year. All the offensive linemen, their contracts are expiring. You have your running backs, your receiver room needs to be overhauled, but you got tight ends. So it's like you have your tight end figured out with Harold Fannin. You might re-sign Njoku. You have your running backs, but you need a full new offensive line and new weapons on the perimeter. Can Dante Moore elevate those guys? We don't really know that because he plays for the Oregon Ducks. It's the same thing like evaluating an Ohio State quarterback. You got the best players. Julian saying, how good are you really? You have Jeremiah Smith and you have Carnell Tate. That's really a difficult evaluation to try and make. What I do know, though, is that we've seen Dante Moore make some really immaculate tight window throws. Like, if you go back to the Penn State game, they won that game in overtime. That's kind of what broke James Franklin forever. Dante Moore went out there and he made some plays. Like, he was slinging it around the yard. He's throwing across the grain, across his body, fitting it into tight windows, making absurd tight window throws. Like, he went out there in a crazy environment at the Penn State whiteout environment and he made plays. Then there's the throw against Iowa where he just ropes that ball right behind the defender's ear, pops it out in front of his receiver down the rail. You probably remember that one. It was on the game-winning drive when they were going down, I believe, to kick a field goal to win. And he just made an amazing, amazing, amazing throw. Dante, I haven't watched all the film, so I'm sure there's tons more that pops up like that. Like the X Factor plays that he makes, like those are there. Those are there. I think he's the best thrower of the football in this draft. I think that he has the most ceiling to go with there, but that kind of player is going to be ultra dependent on the offensive coordinator who you pair him with, the weapons you can bring around him, and making sure that he doesn't lose his confidence because he's a young guy and he will struggle with the Browns going into next year if you can't run the ball and if you don't play special teams well. So that's Dante Moore. Ultra talented, great arm talent, good size to him, young, and unproven in the sense of can he be an elevator of talent? And then you got Ty Simpson. And Ty Simpson, I think, is the right blend between a Dante Moore and a Fernando Mendoza. And that doesn't mean he's the Goldilocks, like, oh, just right, we're going to go with him, because he has his limitations as well. But Ty Simpson's a guy who I look at and I'm like, he's the son of a coach. He has a great understanding of how to play the quarterback position. He really works through his progressions well. I think he has really nice footwork. I think that his touch and ball placement is great. He doesn't have the whip that Dante Moore has and the crazy arm strength or the size that Fernando Mendoza has, but he's a guy where I look at some of his throws he's made this season, particularly the one backed up in the end zone against Tennessee. And this is something on Patreon where we'll actually have all this footage in there to highlight these things. Like, can't put it on YouTube here. And he just reminds me of Joe Burrow. And I said this, I tweeted this, so remember that I have stated this, and I believe I was the first person to say it. I look at him and I see a lot of Joe Burrow. I see a guy who's, Burrow has more height, but is really not physically an imposing person whatsoever. He has the calves of Joe Montana, like skinny chicken legs, but is an amazing player and an amazing processor and can place the ball really well. I see that with Ty Simpson. I see a guy who can go through his progressions, reset his feet, make plays, make tight window throws, put the ball where only his receiver can get it. And this is also a guy where we talk about the environment that you're in. Do you have an amazing run game? Do you have an amazing set of weapons around you? He definitely has the weapons. Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, like there are great pieces around him. They do not have the Alabama run game of the past though. And that has led to a lot more being on his plate. So in terms of Power 4 conference, big school with ultra talent, like of these three guys, he's been having to deal with the least talent around him, I believe, collectively when it comes to run game, pass game, weapons, all those things combined. He does have probably the best left tackle in this draft in Caden Proctor, but this is not the strongest left tackle draft. So Ty Simpson, I see a guy who is that right blend. Processing, the leadership, doesn't necessarily have the size. Like he's only 6'1", 6'2". He's not a huge guy, but this isn't like a Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and I understand there's a difference between those two guys as well. But he's not an undersized guy who's going to have to be playing on his tippy toes and seeing through windows. This is not a Tua or a Dylan Gabriel. Ty Simpson's a guy who I think the only thing holding him back from being the consensus number one in this draft is the height. And that's because Mendoza and Dante Moore are like 6'3", 6'4". So those things definitely matter in ways, but I think that when you see collectively the things that Ty Simpson does around in general, I mean, even this past weekend in the Iron Bowl, he had this beautiful throw, scrambling around, fading away, and just layering the ball. The touch in the red zone was beautiful, beautiful. So he's another guy who I want to see how this goes through the college football playoff and see it. Can he be an elevator? Can he take his team to the next level? Can they overcome the fact that they don't have a great run game, especially when they start to play these better defenses? So if I had to pick today, if I'm the Browns and Shedeur doesn't work out, we don't see anything more from him, And we're in a position where we're drafting maybe 4th overall, and we're definitely going to be able to get one of these 3 quarterbacks, and they're all available. I think that's the biggest thing. If they're all available, who am I taking? Mendoza, the guy who seems like you plug and play him right away. He's going to have the least growing pains. He's going to be able to operate an offense. Maybe he doesn't have the X factor necessarily, but he can do everything that you ask of him, and he's going to be a stable guy. Do you take him? Do you take Dante Moore, who has the highest ceiling and the most arm talent, and who maybe you have the most questions about just because of his age and experience? Him? Or Ty Simpson, the guy who sat on the bench, continued to work, is the son of a coach, and I think shows the overall best footwork, progression, and who I think has really solid but not as high level arm talent as Dante Moore. I think if you were putting it on me, for the guy, because I think mindset is so important, especially when playing in Cleveland, because the press, everything involved with it. It's really important that you are the right guy. And that's also a thing I love about Shedeur Sanders. I think if anyone is equipped to disarm a very feisty press, it's him. So that's one thing where I give him the edge on. I think Ty Simpson. I think Ty Simpson is the guy who I would choose if we had to pick a quarterback going into next year. I love his footwork in the pocket. I love the throws that he has made under pressure. I love the touch that he has on the ball. And I just like his mindset. It's a calm, cool demeanor, but you can tell there's an intensity within there. It's not passive. It's not backup quarterback, even though he was patient and stayed to be a backup quarterback. I think that speaks to his drive and his grit of being like, I'm not transferring. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to sit. I'm going to wait my turn, and I'm going to maximize it when I get there. I think that we could see some really special things from Ty Simpson through the college football playoff this year. And I think that that would be the guy who I would go with and who I would want to build around for the next decade. So, and a lot of that too is just built on the fact that I think when you have a guy like Dante Moore in particular, where they're not that he's so raw, but where they're so young, is that they're going to have to put a lot of faith in the staff that they get. And I just don't think that the Browns have a track record. I mean, they don't have any track record of developing quarterbacks and taking them to the next level, especially when you see like how they treated Baker when they had the opportunity to get to Deshaun, which a lot of teams would have done and were ready to do to their quarterbacks. So a lot of that is just the way the NFL goes, but I think the mindset matters. And I'm going to go with Ty Simpson on that. So you let me know who you would pick if you have the opportunity. We'll pin that down below. Make sure you go check out our Patreon, subscribe, hit the bell, pumping out a ton of videos. I appreciate you guys for supporting. We'll see you next week.